bias against Israel, the obsession with Israel. In order to fight against this, we need to be informed. We need to have the evidence of what is actually going on and the lies that are being expressed and circulated by these organizations to turn Israel into the image of the world's worst human rights violator. In the United Nations and the Human Rights Council, 4 times a year at least, Israel is condemned with resolutions and reports, far more than most of the other countries combined. This is not just a tactic, it's a strategy that is the modern anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, Jew hatred. It all goes together. Manipulating the language, the frameworks, the institutions of human rights, the ones that we created in the wake of the Holocaust. It's a form of Holocaust inversion. The human rights institutions, the people who are called the most respected experts, the frameworks, the NGOs, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, the United Nations Human Rights Council, are propagandists for this campaign. Their goal, not only to turn Israel and the Jewish people into monsters, but also to prevent Israel from being able to defend its citizens. Because everything that Israel does is condemned as a violation of human rights. And that's also one of the reasons that Israel was not prepared to deal with the onslaught that we saw 2 weeks ago. Because every time Israel seeks to disarm Hamas, to fight back against them, Hamas has 30,000 rockets. Every one of those rockets, they're aimed at Israeli civilians, which is obviously a violation of international law, but they're also placed under houses and under mosques and under health clinics. All those are violations of international law. Does the, quote, international community care about that? Do they condemn? Do they take any action? No. And that's something that we need to hold those people who claim to promote human rights responsible for. And most people look at this, at the organizations as voluntary, standing up against the powerful governments that violate human rights, groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all the Palestinian groups, Oxfam. Amnesty International has a budget over $350 million a year. The amount of money and resources and staff members that they focus on attacking Israel is hugely disproportionate to any other part of the world. Human Rights Watch, based in New York, has an annual budget over $100 million, has almost the identical agenda as Amnesty. You add to that at least 50 Palestinian human rights organizations, and I use that very, very cautiously. These aren't human rights organizations. Al-Haq and another 15 similar organizations are part of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine terror network. 8 of them have been designated by the Israeli government, but you can see in NGO monitors traced their close connection with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. These are not human rights organizations, yet they take the floor time after time in Geneva at the Human Rights Council. They speak in parliaments, in the US Congress, in testifying committees. They're not exposed the way they should be as part of this terrorist front, with no credentials, no basic capability of assessing any kind of human rights standing. There are close to 50 of these kinds of organizations, funded primarily by European governments and by the UN to promote this agenda. And then there's the United Nations itself, with a number of different frameworks, but particularly the United Nations Human Rights Council. The Human Rights Council meets 4 times a year. It has a permanent agenda. There is one country that is a focus of the permanent agenda, item 7, and that is Israel. Which means that 4 times a year, there is speaker after speaker, the same NGOs, the same kind of language, the same kind of false claims that are presented, and they become the basis for the United Nations Human Rights Council reports condemning Israel for human rights violations, the bias against Israel, the obsession with Israel. In order to fight against this, we need to be informed. We need to have the evidence of what is actually going on and the lies that are being expressed and circulated by these organizations.